Hello and welcome to the series called Node Explorer. Well, this topic will be about the difference between the random float node and the random float from stream. Well, first off, what is a float? Well, a float is a point number or a number where you can have decimals behind. Like, for example, 4.5 or 3.66 or whatever. This point is important, so you can always use these kind of values with commas in it with float values. You can also use absolute numbers like 3 or 2, but you can also use point numbers. Okay. Well, integers are the opposite. They can only take in absolute values. So 8 or 4 or 5 or anything along these lines. But things like 4.5 or anything with a point in it or comma in it will not work. It will always round down to the closest absolute number. That's basically the difference between these two. There's more to it, but that's more technical than you don't need to know about that in detail. Okay, so we use this kind of type in our random float node. Well, the random float returns a random float between 0 and 1. It just chooses any float in this range. So let's test it, what it actually does. When you press play, 0.27. When we press play again, we get 0.86. When we press again, 0.03. So the random float will always calculate a new value, a new random value every time you press play or every time you load something or open level or do anything to rerun your program. So what is then random float from stream? Well, this node here, let's disconnect it, takes in a stream input. Well, if we drag out from the stream and select make random stream, you will notice that we'll get an initial seed integer. This is important. This value can be set to any arbitrary value you want. But the gist of it is, when you use the random float from stream, you will not just get a random float, but it will be kind of saved. You will always get the same random results every time you run something. Let's input like 500 as an initial seed and press play. We get 0.44. We press play again and we get 0.4. Oh, sorry, my bad. I need to test the right one. So let's play again and we get 0.43 and 0.43. So we get always the same result every time we press play. Now we can change this again to 400 and we will get a different value like 0.18 and 0.18. So every time we press play we get the same value again, but just a different value because we changed the initial seed. You can see this as some kind of ID. You can, the cool thing with this is, when you have a friend and he maybe has a procedural generated map like you can just give him the initial seed and he will get exactly the same random numbers like you did. And that makes things pretty easy, so you don't need to exchange maps and such. If you have a procedural level, you can just share the initial seed and the other player will get the exact same values like you did. So it's cool for sharing. That's one cool thing with it. The second cool thing with it is that it has consistent random values. Let's say like a trader, for example. If you want to have a trader and you save your game, when you use the normal random float, you will experience an issue where this, let's say this is the trader, that the trader will always be spawned in a different location every time you load a save game or run something new or open a new level or anything along these lines. So it's annoying to search for your trader all the time because it spawns on random locations, and that's not good. But by using the make random stream, or rather using the random float from stream, you can get random values one time and they will be applied every time again. So you can load the game and the trader will still be here where you left it. So that's a cool thing for procedural worlds and for procedural generation in general. Well, that's basically the difference between these two. We have also some extensions like random float in range and random float in range from stream. The functionality is the same, like above here. The difference is that you can specify a range. So you don't get a range between 0 and 1, but you will get some you specify yourself. So when you use the random float in range, the minimum would be 2, the maximum would be 10. You can't go over 10 and you can't go under 2. So the value, the random float value you get will always be in between these two values. And the random float in range from stream is the same as this, just that it has this stream feature and the initial seed feature, so the random values are consistent. I hope it was understandable, I hope I did explain it well, and I wish you a wonderful day, evening, whatever, and I will see you next time. See ya!